The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right, it's episode number 73, and it is 241 days till the man burns as of this recording. Thank you to Cody Cannon for leaving us that wonderful comment about the Otto von Danger episode. Love you, Cody, and thank you very much for the support. I've actually run into a lot of people at parties and such who make the effort to single out that episode specifically. There's this consistent feedback of something along the lines of, he is such an interesting character, and wow, I really agreed with pretty much everything he said. Hey, by the way, you're probably noticing that my voice just sounds completely wrecked. And this time it's not because I partied too hard at a regional, because I know that's like the most common excuse you hear. But no, this time it's different. I've been battling the flu, took an impromptu trip to Vegas on Christmas Eve, and it hit me like a ton of bricks on the drive back. I don't know. Maybe baby Jesus wasn't too happy with my decision to hit Sin City on his birthday. You know, funny thing is, I don't know why I've had it in my head all these years that I have not been catching the flu, and it's always been just a common cold. Wait, I do, actually. I do remember this very distinctly. I was walking somewhere with a group of friends, and I said that I had the flu, and they laughed at me, and were like, no, dude, you have a cold. If you had the flu, you would be bedridden. And I remember just ever since then, I just always thought I'd been catching a common cold every year, and that I'm just a little bitch. So I never got the flu shot for that specific reason. And so then I learned this past week that I've been doing it the hard way every year because of some passing comment that my dumbass friends made almost a decade ago. Somehow I accidentally stumbled into being an anti-vaxxer. So flu shot for sure next year. Get your flu shots. I never want to go through this again. But I know that normally this is the part of the show where I just tell you some random shit about me before I get into the Burning Man stuff. But this time it is totally relevant because in the interview that you're about to hear with the founders and leads of Camp Walter, you are going to continue being subjected to my barely a voice, struggling to excitedly ask questions. So a heads up, that's what you're going to be hearing for the next hour and a half or so. Producer Rebel and I took a road trip to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona this past weekend, which was also New Year's weekend, to link up with Camp Walter over at the Walter Dome. So let's clear up some glossary terms real quick so that this all makes sense to you. There's Camp Walter. That's the Burning Man camp that you're probably familiar with if you've spent any time at that thing in the desert. Camp Walter is who brings that ridiculous arsenal of art cars every year, among which you've likely seen Calliope, which usually has a DJ atop it and dancers, and there's a whole show happening with lights and sparkles and fire and live music and sensory overload. And you've most definitely seen Walter the bus. That's the world's largest Volkswagen bus. In fact, you've probably seen photos of Walter the bus, even if you've never been to a burn. Walter, riding through the desert is one of those iconic Burning Man images you see often, very often when you Google image search Burning Man. Anyway, there's also Big Red and Heathen and Peace Train and Mona Lisa and Pugbug. So that's Camp Walter on Playa. And then there's Walter Productions. Walter Productions is the production company which exists and operates year-round, consisting of, and I'm going to just be quoting from their bio right here, an entire fleet of entertainment-themed vehicles and venues professionally managed on a gigantic scale and dedicated to the wonder and delight of adventurers everywhere. That sounds beautiful. Walter Productions is one of the ways the Walter tribe is able to support, sustain, and fund Camp Walter on Playa, which you will learn is a no-dues camp. They bring all of this magic, all of this work to Burning Man, and they do it without charging a dime from anybody in their crew. We're going to get into all this stuff on the interview, but when you see Walter the Bus anywhere outside of Burning Man, chances are it's a Walter Productions thing. After we recorded the interview you're about to hear in just a minute, over at the Walter Dome, which, by the way, is just one of the facilities that the Walter crew has where they create all the magic. Producer Rebel and I got to experience the whole Walter show in person. We got to ring in the new year on top of Calliope, which was just amazing. It was just so much fun. The whole Walter show was in attendance, and it was fucking Burning Man in the middle of downtown Phoenix, which was just a mind-bending experience. Just absolutely the most perfect way I could have imagined ringing in the new year with our amazing new friends, whom you're about to get to know quite intimately. Mary and Kirk, the founders of Camp Walter, as well as Ricky, who wears many, many hats for Walter and whose reputation tends to precede him. Everybody knows Ricky. Everybody always goes, oh my God, I love Ricky. Let me tell you something. People just generally rave about Camp Walter. I mean, everywhere I go, every conversation I happen to stumble into where the Arizona burner community comes up, people just rave about them. Troy from episode 68 was telling me, dude, you really got to sit with Camp Walter. And then when Tony K, the man in pink, was on episode number 70, he was like, dude, you really got to sit down with Camp Walter. They just keep coming up. The people, they've been chanting, demanding a Camp Walter episode. And we hear you. We heard you. We heard your demands, and here they are. And after the interview, do stick around for the closing DJ set, which was appropriately recorded at the Pink Party at Burning Man 2017. Joe P. and Gary Bailey going back-to-back on top of Calliope at Camp Walter. So we're going to play you an hour of that set after we're done with the conversation here. So if you want to follow along with today's conversation, you can visit walterproductions.com or walterthebus.org. And there's all kinds of photos and stuff you can get, like more frames of reference for some of the topics that are being discussed. But without further whatever, let's get into it. Today's episode is entitled Peace, Love, and Walter. Camp Walter is definitely coming back on, by the way. We only scratched the surface of their importance to the Arizona and the international community. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr., and this is my jacked up cold voice. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
Looking at all the life, there were plants and birds and rocks and things, there was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the bugs and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name.
I've been smoking for over 50 years.
Yeah.
And my lungs are totally protected from any outside influence.
By tar.
By tar.
There's a nice,
totally coated.
a nice thick coat of lung cancer right around.
And I'm perfectly fine. Hell, my grandfather didn't quit smoking until he was 80, and he lived another 22 years.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure if Keith Richards quits smoking and drinking, he'll just die.
He's done.
Yeah. I had my last cigarette on Playa, what is it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? the year that it was like just the dustiest year ever.
3 years ago,
Yeah.
we were over on the other side.
And the playa absolutely helped me in quitting smoking because every time I lit a cigarette, like I was smoking half the fucking playa. So by a burn night, I remember I like smoked half of it, and I'm like, I can't even finish this cigarette, and that was the last one.
Nice.
One last little smoking story.
Nice.
So there's a fella named Dave Hahn who's a climber, and outside of 3 Sherpas. He has the most summits of Everest in history. He has 15 summits of Everest. Now, I know Dave very well. He stayed at our home in California for a while, and he and Kirk, little brother, on Everest, first attempt. Anyway, Dave's major complaint every time he's at Camp 6, which is the final assault camp, is that typically the weather up there prohibits smoking.
Because it can't light it?
Because the wind. You can't get the damn thing lit. And he's summited 15 times.
And he just smokes continuously.
But those old French climbers with their gauloises and all of that, you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they just come out of the womb with a cigarette in their mouth. Cutting a piece of cheese.
Anyway, I won't tell any more stories.
Yeah, right.
Oh, God, how are we going to fill the next hour and a half then?
I thought this was 15 minutes. I've got a nap coming up.
You have a heart out, another radio interview?
We'll wake you up partway after.
We will be waking Ricky up during the interview.
That's quite all right. That's why I have you two here, so we can keep the conversation going.
Ricky's sleeping.
No, I've absolutely had shows where we've recorded and like 20 minutes into it, I'm like, fuck, I have another hour and a half to fill. I don't know what to talk to this person about. I mean, nobody on this show, obviously.
No, other shows.
Well, let's do this. I want to go around and have each of you introduce yourselves so that the listener can associate your voice with a name. You're going to say what your role with Camp Walter is, if there is such a thing, if you could describe it in such a way. And I also want you to share with me your favorite, most sinful food that you just feel no pride whatsoever and lots of shame in eating whenever you eat it. So we'll start with this side.
Sure. So my name's Kirk Strawn, and I, along with my wife Mary, are the founders of Camp Walter. And my most sinful food is carrot raisin salad.
Carrot raisin salad?
Yeah,
that's not fair at all.
So the raisins get all like swollen and plump, and it swims in this really almost disgustingly like creamy sauce, and then shredded carrots, and it is my favorite food in the entire world.
That
And
doesn't feel very simple,
it's
though.
disgusting.
It is. It's so
it's
sinful.
like mayonnaise
It's
and
so
sour
sinful.
cream. And
It is so sinful. Yeah.
No, you had me at mayonnaise. That's all I needed.
And I'm Mary Strawn, and like Kirk said, co-founder of Camp Walter, now mom and dad of Camp Walter. And probably my most sinful food would be really, really heavily battered onion rings with ranch dressing.
Okay. See, that's
pretty sinful.
more
That's pretty sinful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel guilty just hearing that. Just goes right to my hips.
My name is Ricky Foley, and if Kirk is the dad and Mary is the mom, then I'm the crazy uncle. And you can get enough of me at a Thanksgiving dinner or a Christmas dinner, but when I leave, everybody's pretty much glad to see me go. And my most sinful food comes from childhood, probably, when Mom used to make chocolate chip cookie dough and put them in the wax paper rolls and put them in the freezer. And then I'd sneak into the freezer a few days later and I'd take one out and I'd take it to my bedroom and I'd eat the whole thing after it thawed out. And if that's the most sinful thing I've ever done, then it's
Ricky,
probably,
that is not the most sinful
that's
thing
probably
you've
a
ever
lie.
No.
See, Kirk, let me tell you something. Your answer was almost like when you go for a job interview and they say, "What's your biggest weakness?" And you're like, "I'm such a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I just work way too hard, and I
work
think that's
too
my
hard."
problem."
Exactly.
So, and also for the listeners, can you? I think I know where we are, but can you tell the listeners where we are actually sitting right now?
Yeah, so we are in the Red Room of the Walter Dome, and the Walter Dome is it sounds weird, but it's in Scottsdale, Arizona. But it's in South Scottsdale. Like this is not like Scottsdale. We're in an old lumber yard, and we're in the old door shop of the lumber yard, and it's the big building where we have built virtually all of our creations. All of our vehicles have, to some extent, been built in this big room that we're in. And there's a little music stage right outside of the room that we're in. And it's so quiet in this room because this was going to be a recording studio for when bands would play on the little stage in our makerspace. So we're sitting in the red room, and it's super cozy in here with like red shag carpeting and acoustic panels all over the walls.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I have a follow-up question to that, but first I want to know, why is it weird that we are in Scottsdale but not quite in Scottsdale?
Because Scottsdale like has this whole like image of glitzy kind of high-end Scottsdale. I don't know any other way to say it. Scottsdale. And but we're in the dregs of Scottsdale. We're south. Like we're way, way south. And we're right where Tempe, which is kind of where ASU is at, and a really kind of progressive, cool town, and Phoenix, which is a really rapidly evolving scene, and South Scottsdale. They all come together right where we are right now.
Yeah. You're like the center of the Scottsdale universe.
We're like the navel of this whole area.
That explains why I want to keep picking it.
Well, I don't know about that reference to anatomy. I'm thinking of another one. But it's revitalizing. South Scottsdale has changed. I've been here for over 50 years now, and it's a lot different. There's a lot of not clubs, but bars, restaurants, shopping, more casual than, say, the rest of Scottsdale has a reputation of being.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like in this little area where we are right now, it's like last night Mary and I were out to dinner just kitty corner from here, like where the canal kind of comes up, and it really is changing. Like the whole of the valley, this whole valley is ramping up and just getting really interesting. And I think the whole Phoenix idea of sort of the Phoenix bird, it burns up, and then next thing you know, another one comes out of the ashes, is really happening in the valley. Like it's a really exciting time to live here.
Yeah. How long have you guys been in Phoenix?
Probably 25 years.
Okay.
So it's like home now.
Yeah. You've been here 50, you said.
Well, on and off.
Yeah.
I have not been here that entire time, but the first time I actually lived here, going to ASU, was 50 years ago next year.
Yeah.
But I've always seemed to come back here. Opportunities come up, you go off to other places, do other things, but I know a lot of people that have left and come back here. Something about it.
ASU was what
doesn't have anything to do with the weather being 77 degrees out there right now, and it's New Year's Eve tomorrow.
No natural disasters.
No natural disasters.
Yeah, the bird might still be on fire. ASU was what initially brought you here?
Yes.
Going to school here? What was your major?
Oh, my. I have to think about that one. I've been to 4 different universities, and again, they were glad to see me leave after dinner. But ironically, I was in criminology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my life made a drastic change then. I ended up on the other side of the fence for about a decade.
Yeah, where were you guys before you actually came to this area?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York, and then came here for residency, and have never gone back to Buffalo for many good reasons.
But Mary went to MIT, which I think is an interesting part of her history as well. She's a pediatrician.
Wow. Can I just say Buffalo has a very special place in my heart?
Really?
Well, because of Buffalo chicken quesadillas. specifically buffalo wings. That's where it
Chicken
started.
wings. Oh yeah.
That's the magic of it. But tell us more about that. About what actually brought you out here initially. About that time period.
Yeah, I was. I had graduated from medical school, and I wanted to go someplace new where it was warm. I wanted nothing to do with the Buffalo winters anymore, and I just wanted a fresh start where I didn't know a single person. And so I interviewed out here and just kind of connected with the residency program and came here for my training, and then met Kirk during my training, and we've been here ever since.
Oh, so you were out here at that time as well. Where were you before?
Yeah, I was doing my postgraduate medical training as well, so my residency.
Yeah.
And I'm a family physician. And so Mary and I met at the county hospital when some poor young boy knelt down on a nail and pierced his knee joint and got a septic arthritis. And she consulted me on a Saturday afternoon, and I fell in love with her like the second I saw her.
And ironically, the first time you asked me out on a date, it was to go have carrot raisin salad at the county hospital cafeteria.
That is true.
Thus
very
the
true.
carrot raisin salad rears its ugly head again.
That's right.
Oh, that's the best kind of story when it all like comes back around. If we can find a third reference to that particular food by the end of the show, we've got a winner. So,
it turns out on my birthday, I have
Here it is.
on my birthday I have the orange meal, which is it's an homage to our beginnings. But Mary makes me all food that's orange. Everything's orange. Carrot raisin salad, mandarin oranges, orange juice, Kraft macaroni and cheese, because that's the most orange of all the macaroni and cheeses, and usually like orange peppers, orange whatever, some kind of stuff. So every year, one time per year, which is why it's still decadent to me, I get my carrot raisin salad one time per year.
if we can find a way to make that a cake, then I think we're talking real decadence.
Wow, that is...
There is carrot cake.
Carrot cake, raisin.
No, it's not
something?
the same.
Raisins in
No,
it.
it's not the same. You gotta...
You got to get the mayonnaise in
Doesn't
there.
have to, yeah. You gotta find a way to get mayonnaise into that carrot cake.
It's
and then
more
you're
like a
set.
pudding. Pudding.
So you two, all right. So there we are. Now, so we have you two connected here. Where are you 25 years ago, Ricky? Do you remember? When these two are meeting and there's a nail being driven through a knee.
What year is it now? 17?
It's like
80.
So
90.
Yeah, 89, 90.
89.
91.
Milli Vanilli is still
That kind of time.
rocking it.
in the Bay Area,
Ooh.
Silicon Valley, at not the earliest days, but had been there in the early days. So 88, 89, 90. We're coming up on the anniversary of the Earthquake World Series. I remember driving home from work to Sunnyvale, and yeah, we were. I was building homes, infill, custom spec houses from San Mateo down to Mountain View, from that corridor, Palo Alto, Menlo, Atherton, Los Altos area.
Right.
So I was building homes, and had been there for probably most of the 80s. Moved back here to Phoenix in 92.
You said you remember driving home when the earthquake hit?
Yeah, coming down the 280,
Oh, wow.
coming from I'd been up in San Mateo, and I was coming back to Sunnyvale to watch the game.
Yeah.
I'd been to games 1 and 2 in Oakland. Had season tickets in Oakland for many years, Oakland A's. But driving home down 280, just almost to Cupertino exit there, and I thought all 4 tires had blown out on my truck.
Oh, wow.
At the same time, because just, you're driving and you're moving, so the relationship to the outside world is moving also. And then suddenly I realized everybody else had flat tires too, because they were all going every which way. So,
Wow.
but yeah.
I didn't know you were building homes. And then Ricky's built homes for us as well. So the Walter Dome where we are at is one of Ricky's projects. He was worked with his brother and basically converted this old door shop, which Ricky will confirm as well, it was a wreck. This building was a wreck. And brought it back, and it's become kind of Walter's home, over the last 10 years. Yeah. And at Burning Man, every year we build our home. We have about 240 people that are in Camp Walter. And Ricky's always kind of first one on, helps us kind of set up our home there. You're still a home builder.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
That's always one of my favorite moments when we're having these, like, when we're kind of getting people's histories, when all of a sudden they realize, oh, it makes sense that you do this thing. There was this other part that I didn't know. So, I mean, but just even you're building homes there, I'm guessing Burning Man came into your consciousness sooner than you two, just because it was out there.
Oh, no.
I could be wrong.
No, I had only heard of Burning Man from the early days. Only heard of it. Wayback Machine, Haight-Ashbury days, Golden Gate Park, literally hundreds of thousands of people in free concerts in Golden Gate Park, Fillmore, whatever. And I kind of felt that Burning Man ruined the hippie movement.
Yeah.
But everything changes. It's part of, entropy, chaos, all that. We as a group, core group of Walter, we firmly believe in chaos as a positive force, and entropy as a positive developing force. Am I using the empirical we here?
No, it's just that you're sitting next to Mary, which you are like totally polar opposite. Ricky creates chaos, and we benefit intensely from that creation of chaos. And Mary creates order. Yeah. And they are it's funny that you're sitting on the couch next to one another.
It's too bad we can't show the centerfold of the new calendar. No? Can we do that? Can't we do a live stream here?
Yeah, we can put the photo up on the blog afterwards. But
how did Burning Man ruin the hippie movement?
It eventually introduced EDM into the world.
Ugh. Sorry.
I love EDM.
For a while they were just saying,
I know you do.
That's our dance music.
That's why I don't
dance all the fucking time.
That's why I don't go to Burning Man. I never go to Burning Man because of EDM.
He said he would never go to Burning Man. He helped us get to Burning Man. He helped Walter,
right,
and the whole Walter organization, get to Burning Man for years, and he would never go. Said he would never ever go.
Yeah.
And now Ricky lives Burning Man 24/7, 365. He is Burning Man all the time.
That sounds absolutely perfect. Because I want to know how you guys met then. I know you guys got together 25 years ago. He's in the middle of an earthquake over there building homes.
Well, it's when you guys came back from the first Walter's first burn in 2009. And Walter at that time was just a microcosm of what he is now. Just the plain aluminum, no upper deck. Upper deck was completely open. It looked like a
he was a single cab. Walter was a single cab
bus.
Volkswagen pickup.
Yeah. And you had decided to make a home for Walter. So all the construction.
In the dome, right?
So that fall, right after 2009 burn, started the rebuilding of this building that we're in right now, Walter Dome.
Yep.
For a home for Walter.
Okay.
And my brother had an office around the corner, again, construction related. And I had paused in my life and decided to when you come to a fork, take it. Well, and here was the perfect opportunity. So I helped Bryce, my brother, got involved in this, and it just grew from that.
Perfect.
We've been together and inseparable pretty much since that day.
And ironically, you knew my father years before you had met my brother and I.
Yeah,
through the medical world.
Yeah, I was a medical director at a large medical group here in Phoenix, and I met this really cool dude on the diabetes task force.
Yeah.
And we had, we have tens of thousands of diabetics, and we're developing programs for them. And the coolest guy of all turned out to be Ricky's dad, and I didn't know. And I worked with him for a long time. And, yeah.
All right, well, let's go back to that chronology here. So, you two, when did Burning Man come into your consciousness? You meet, you fall in love. He's over there in the earthquake.
Yeah.
Back over here.
So the way we got to Burning Man was Mary and I, we're both two physicians. We're having this normal kind of physician life, and we had our first daughter. So we have two daughters. We had our first daughter, and Mary had this sort of brilliant idea that we shouldn't sort of go the normal path. And we moved into our garage, which is 450 square feet. And we end up living in there for 5 years.
This is in Phoenix?
In Phoenix.
Okay.
And we rented our house out so that we could live for free. And we bought a Volkswagen bus. And we had this idea, back to the hippie idea, Ricky, is we kind of adopted that ideal of freedom, which the Volkswagen bus to me has always been freedom.
Is that why you chose a Volkswagen bus?
Yeah.
Because there's like other, passenger vans.
Of course. But the Volkswagen bus in the 60s created freedom. Like people with not very much money were able to put everything they owned in that and go and do anything, anywhere they wanted. And so Mary and I moved into our garage. We rented our house out. We got a Volkswagen bus. And we started going to this Volkswagen bus gathering in northern Arizona in Jerome. It's up this little mining town. Everything's really built on the side of the mountain. And that's another home for Walter as well.
Tell me more about that festival, actually. Is it like a festival? It's a car gathering?
Yeah, it's like 300 vintage Volkswagen buses, like the old split window, old school buses. And so they gather up there every September, right after Burning Man. Yeah. And I was up there. Mary and I took our daughters when they were tiny, and we camped up there and went to this thing. And we just found a community that we didn't find elsewhere.
Right.
And
had you had an experience with that kind of community in the past?
No. I think that was the beginning, honestly.
Right.
Well, no, it's not true. The dead shows. So
Yes.
Mary didn't really do a lot of that with me, but my little brother, Eric, who built Big Red and has built parts of things throughout kind of the Walter process. But we used to go to dead shows. Right. And the parking lot of dead shows was kind of like that. It was this group of people, and I always thought of it as this group of people has been going continuously for hundreds of years. They just get together every once in a while, and they all love each other, and they are accepting, and they're self-reliant, and they're quirky, and there's crazy tie-dye everywhere, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And we found that in Jerome.
Yeah,
and
it's a sense of
grilled cheese, which is orange.
Yeah, grilled cheese.
There you go. It's a sense of community. It's almost like the gateway drug. That's like the first experience.
Yeah. So the dead
for sure
to the Volkswagen community.
To the Volkswagen community, yeah.
And we met this guy.
And I imagine there was a lot of crossover.
So the crossover is a guy. His name's Gerry Gibson, and he's the commissioner of Volkswagen Bus Camp at Burning Man. He also was, I think, one of the original founders of Videogasm, and has been part of Burning Man forever. And he came up to me at the Volkswagen at Jerome and said, "Have you ever heard of Burning Man?" And this was probably almost 10 years before we ended up going to Burning Man ultimately, like in the late 90s sort of. And he told us about Burning Man. They had these giant cars and all this crazy stuff. And the day that he told us about Burning Man was the day I found the fire truck, which became Walter.
Oh, wow.
So
that's synchronicity.
Yeah. So where they have this Volkswagen bus gathering once per year, which we just got back from in September and had an amazing time. The guy who owned this mine had collected hundreds of old vehicles, like from the early 1900s to maybe the 1940s or 50s. But he had this one thing. It was this 1963 Walter airport crash truck, which is a split window, rear-engined fire truck that looks, for all intents and purposes, like a Volkswagen bus. It has a short wheelbase, gigantic tires. It looks like a bus. And it was a piece of playground equipment, basically. He parked it there. He'd shut it off. It had been a really important fire truck. Like in the 1960s, it was at Luke Air Force Base here in the Valley. Was an airport crash truck for the Air Force. It moved to a private runway to be an airport crash truck there. Then it got older and older, and the Walter Truck Company, which had created it, had been around since the late 1800s, but was about to come to an end. It was about 100-year company, and they created these unbelievably powerful four-wheel drive vehicles that could do mining, forestry, snow plowing, and airport crash trucking.
The Walter Truck Company, can you in brief describe what they are and what they did?
Sure. So it started, it's a guy named Walter, obviously his last name was Walter, and he was a candy maker, and
of course.
he built like machines that made candy. And then that was right at the time in the late 1800s when all of a sudden cars, these horseless carriages started to be created. And he's like, well, fuck it, I can build a car. So he did, because people did that. Bless you. People built, like early on, anybody could start a car company. He started the Walter car company, and he built this weird little kind of like, horseless carriage.
It was like the dot-com boom, but at that time,
exactly.
I'll just try making cars.
Hundreds of car companies.
Wow.
It's hard to imagine that there were hundreds of car companies.
All independent of each other.
Right. In World War One, they were building already cars now, like they look like big cars, like from the early 1900s. But then they went to World War One and they saw all of the vehicles that got stuck in the mud in Europe, and they came back and they said, we should build heavy-duty off-road vehicles. And so they came up with methods to really revolutionize four-wheel drive technology. Wow. And they started to build snowplows and mining equipment and all of this stuff. But the airport fire truck, the crash truck, is really an interesting sort of ideal. Yeah. It's like it's a vehicle that sits in waiting for a plane to crash. And once the plane crashes, it has only one purpose. Wow. Is to get as close to it as possible. Because if you imagine what happens when a plane crashes, it's basically a giant fuel tank that usually the fuel tank is ruptured and it starts on fire. So it's hell. Yeah. This vehicle has only one purpose: to get as close to the fire as possible and to put it out. And so it has like inch-thick windshields. Yeah. It has cannons that can discharge this enormous volume of foam in 1 minute. So if you think about, you know how big Walter the bus is. Sure. Imagine 10 times that volume. A vehicle being able in 1 minute to discharge 10 times the volume of Walter the bus onto the fuselage of a crashed plane to completely extinguish the flame. Wow. For only one purpose. They are never trying to save the plane. The plane's always lost. Huh. It's only to save the lives of the people that are in that plane. Walter had one purpose. His only one purpose was that. To save the people who were in a plane that crashed. His entire life was spent as service. And he moved from the 1960s being this, amazing sort of, probably $500,000 state-of-the-art fire truck, to by the 1980s, the Walter Truck Company was becoming obsolete and going out of business. Couldn't get parts for him anymore. He went to another airport. Then he went to a small town in northern Arizona where he became the off-road fire truck. Because he was four-wheel drive, he could get places other fire trucks couldn't.
Right.
But then one day he broke enough teeth off of his flywheel that he wouldn't start. And a fire truck that won't start is nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely useless.
Yeah.
So there was a guy who owned this mine that would throw the Volkswagen bus, parties, that laid underneath him, cut a hole in the housing, and welded on little teeth onto his flywheel so he could get him started. Bought him for, our understanding is about $500, and drove him to the mine, shut him off, and he was never going to move again. He let kids climb on him for probably 5 or 10 years. Yeah. And then this one day, this guy tells me about Burning Man, and we meet Walter, and that was the beginning of everything. And we got him back down to Phoenix, right here on these grounds, and we built him into the bus. And since then, every single year, pretty much, we built a new car, and it all started from that sort of bizarre kind of intersection of ideas.
That is amazing. Were you into were you as much of a car guy before all of this started to happen?
Yeah, I liked miniature cars.
Yeah.
I liked these like tiny cars like BMW Izettas and Messerschmitts and tiny Hondas and these tiny little itty bitty like 1 or 2 person cars. But
so this awareness was already sort of in your pedigree, if you will. It was already in the culture of your family. So when you're told the story, it's like absolute, geek orgasm about this thing. That's amazing. So that's how it ends up becoming Camp Walter. Like, tell us about that transition. How does all of this start to happen?
So
I guess we should talk about your first burn then, huh?
Yeah,
that would be where the story goes.
So we met Walter, the fire truck, and he still stayed up in Jerome and was there for another, because he would sit there every year. And he was on the side of the mountain, and he would watch every year the Volkswagen bus show up and then leave. Yeah. But he was never going to move. He was like totally there.
Yeah. For anybody tripping out, by the way, listeners, like we are talking about an object, not an actual person.
Yeah.
Who, Walter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He has a personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has a personality.
No, he's we've personified Walter.
No, there's multiple times as you're telling the story that I was like waving in and out of like, okay, hold on.
No. And everyone in our community will
refer to it as
will also he. Like, yeah.
Sure.
So anyway, then it was a number of years. So like Walter was up on the side of that mountain in Jerome, and Mary and I decided that we were going to homeschool our girls and travel around the country. And there was a friend who, he and his family, they had 3 girls. We had our 2 girls there. Our girls were like 10 and 11 or something like that. And we decided to go to Burning Man because we were homeschooling them for a couple of years. We took them out of school and we were homeschooling and traveling around in an RV. And we wanted to go to Burning Man. And we actually, our RV caught on fire on the way to Burning Man, which was kind of a shitstorm.
Is that irony?
but we made it there, and we just kind of were blown away. I don't know any other way to say it. We were completely blown away.
Tell us about your first night on Playa. Mary. I want Mary to tell us more.
What I remember is the original story of taking the girls and driving in.
Oh, yeah. Tell them that one.
I don't know if I can... Should I tell that story?
Of course.
So the girls are like 10, 11-ish. They had a younger daughter who was probably...
Yeah, there's 5 girls in our
Yeah, so there's
RV.
5 young girls. So we're driving in, and we don't really know what to expect. I mean, they're, we're just taking them around to these different places, seeing things. So we're driving in, and the first thing we see, even before we get to the gates, is this, older gentleman, naked, walking along. So the girls, I noticed them, they're all on that side, looking out the window, kind of looking, at the back of this guy. He's
How old are
walking. They're 10-ish,
Okay.
like kind of in that range, like probably, I don't know, 6 to 12, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he's walking the same direction we are. So we're looking at him from the back, and I'm kind of watching them to see what their reaction is going to be. So then we drive past, and all their heads at the same time just turn to look and see the front. And I'm kind of just watching it. I'm not going to say anything. And, they just, once they saw that, they were all in. They just, nothing like shocked them or
Our kids
anything.
had the best time. This is
Yeah.
2007.
Yeah.
And
They
our
had
younger
the
daughter,
best time.
yeah, who was like 10 at the time, what she said, in like right away after we had spent a couple days there, she said, I always want to come back here because nobody judges you. You can do whatever you want. You can be yourself. And like she got it.
Oh yeah.
And we were there for 2 days.
Yeah.
So, and that we all kind of went through that.
Yep.
That realization of that, sense of.
Yeah.
Last year was their 10th burn.
Right.
It was
Oh
their
wow.
10th burn.
Wow. They're more
So-
hardcore burners than I am.
So we brought 2 art cars in 2009. We took 2008 off. We got Walter down off the mountain. We brought him to just right near here.
Right, I don't want to skim past that story.
Yeah.
Let's come back to that in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
second. But just even that night on play, I want to say regarding your kids, it's interesting because I imagine that's right around the time that they're starting to develop an awareness of like cliques and groups of kids, and this is the way these kids act. So immediately having this opening to this kind of culture must be a huge thing.
Yeah.
For that kind of breakthrough.
Yeah. And that was partly why we took them out of school, because that was starting to happen, and
Right.
we saw that sort of in their development. And so that's when we decided to go and do the homeschool and just travel and give them that experience sort of before they got into that heavy duty sort of cliques. And we just wanted them to have that sort of background. So
Why did it take you guys so long to go from the time that you learned about Burning Man?
I don't know. We were busy raising them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just kind of thought about it. It was something that we wanted to do, but it wasn't like an immediate thing. If we had realized what it was like, we would have been there. But we just kind of got busy doing things. And
After you actually got out there, did any of your thoughts about what Burning Man is and what the community is change, or did it just affirm what you already had come to conclude?
I realized the scale was so much bigger than I had any concept of.
Right.
I saw Big Rig Jig, the 2 semis, kind of in an S shape, in 2007, and it totally changed my concept of what was possible.
Yeah.
Like when I saw that sculpture and stood under it and realized, shit, you can do this.
Yeah.
Like that made making Walter totally feasible.
Right.
Had I not seen that, and had I not seen the overall scale of Burning Man, I'm not sure I would have. I don't think I could have ever heard from someone what I experienced. I like, you have to be there and see it in order to understand just the complete potential of that space.
You cannot be told what Burning Man is. You must experience it. What year was this? You said 2007?
was the first year that we
Yeah.
went. Yeah.
7, yeah.
Where were you in 2007, Ricky?
Actually, I was pretty close to homeless at that time. 7. Yep.
10 years ago.
Yep. I flew my life into the side of a mountain, 04, and continued rapidly deteriorating. Massive substance abuse, all kinds, anything. You have to remember, I come from a generation before almost all of our tribe members. I was getting interested in these kind of activities and these kind of people and these kind of thoughts during the beatnik era. Gregory Corso, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Jack Kerouac, Neil Cassidy, Ken Kesey, all that Haight-Ashbury scene. Although a lot of those people were there, City Lights Bookstore, and, Kesey was at Stanford, Neil Cassidy was hanging around with Jack Kerouac and Los Gatos. So, that was my initial entrance into alternative lifestyles, alternative thoughts, worlds, whatever. That would have been in the early to mid 60s.
Right.
So, I had gone through many, many years of drug and alcohol related problems. And in 2007, I was, like I said, I don't know where I was living. And it doesn't really matter. But managed to pull myself back together a little bit, and that's when I hooked up with these guys. And, with much browbeating from Mary and threats from Kirk that I'll never be able to come around here again, or I won't be able to have any fun with these people unless I straighten my act up, God damn it.
What year did you guys meet?
Move out of the Red Room. I used to live in this room that we're sitting in.
You
here.
lived in this room. I forgot that.
Yeah, that was years ago.
You said, so in 2007, you were here in Phoenix at that time, or were you in the Bay Area at the time that they were having their first burn?
Oh, I was here. Yeah,
Okay.
We had moved back here from the Bay Area in 92 at that time.
So how did you guys meet?
Well, just through the building of the construction work, the physical construction work that was going on in this building. I just pretty much started. I mean, the big doors weren't even in yet. The Red Room wasn't here. The stage, just.
No, it was the very beginning.
It was very beginning.
It's interesting that now you asked that question, because that's how almost all of our community has connected, is through builds.
Yeah.
How were you introduced, though?
Through Bryce.
Through Bryce.
Through
Bryce
Ricky's
has the
brother.
office over here on the corner.
So we got Walter down off the mountain.
Right. So that makes sense. What year was that?
2008.
Okay.
So Mary and I had gone to Burning Man, and we were like, oh, this was so awesome. We want to do this, and we want to bring something back. And we knew Walter was up there. This guy who owned him had never sold anything. Like, he would never sell anything. He's like a heavy equipment hoarder, hundreds, acres and acres of filled with this. We finally got him to trade us for a Volkswagen bus. The fire truck, and he brought the fire truck down here. We put it in one of the bays back at the back of the lumberyard here, and it was Ricky's brother's bay.
Yeah.
And we put it in there.
So was the lumberyard here just storage for you guys, or how did you guys get connected with this?
Yeah, so this is very close to where Mary and I live, or our home is.
Right.
And we were just looking for some place to put it, because we didn't really have a place to put it, and we found this bay in the back here. This is a lumberyard. So this is an old lumberyard, and so there's another part of Walter, which is that everything that has anything to do with Walter has had kind of a previous life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, and now I'm realizing Ricky had a previous life. But we take something that had this previous life, and often it's fallen completely into disrepair or has been forgotten. And it gets this amazing second life, whether that's Phoenix or whatever. This lumberyard, all the family-owned lumberyards went out of business in the Lowe's, Home Depot era. But these guys figured out that they had land, so they could rent out space to artists and artisans and craftsmen. And they figured out that there was, sort of other aspects like new doors, new windows, things like that they could do. And so we lucked into being able to be part of that, and they gave us, responsibility for this old door shop, which is what ultimately we turned into kind of the Walter Dome.
Right.
Yeah.
So at that, your first introduction to it, though, was your storage, and you're going to set up Walter over here, start rebuilding it so that you can take it to the 2009 burn.
Right, right.
Right.
And we started gathering more and more people to help us do that. Because, I mean, Mary and I are physicians. We're not welders. We're not fabricators. We're not, lighting people. We're not any of that. So the community grew around the creation of Walter.
May I submit? I'm sorry. So you're a pediatrician, family practice doctor? Because the note that I made earlier was family is like the running theme for you guys. Building family, building community, and a lot of things that you guys even said before we started recording, I was kind of picking up on tribe, family, like little by little people are gravitated to this kind of energy that you guys have. How did you find people to come and start working on this? I mean, how are you? Back on MySpace, Facebook.
You know what? I'll have to say that there is some natural process that I cannot put my finger on that just makes it happen.
Right.
And it happens continuously, and it's gaining momentum, and I don't know what it is.
Well, for instance, Primo, one of the longest term people with the tribe back to really very beginning, he was putting up metal fencing in your backyard at your home.
Right? There was a connection, right?
There
That
was
was
the connection there. And now he's been, fabricator on Walter and Big Red, on Lisa, everything. We just
we're part owners of a new festival here in Phoenix called the Lost Lake Festival, and we put out a call for. We created all these like gigantic games where people could play on these giant, like croquet and giant Connect Four and pool and all these giant games. We put out a call for volunteers. We got there were over 140 volunteers that were just Walter volunteers, just to help the attendees have a very participatory, non-judgmental, super fun experience. And there is, I don't know, I actually do not understand quite what it is. It is connected with kind of what you experience at Burning Man. Like, how did we get to 240 people in our camp?
Right.
It's the same answer as to why we have continually been able to build new vehicles, attract people in, Well, and
we have to limit it to 240 because, that's all we can handle. There could very well, if there were no limitations, there would be twice that many or more.
And we're like a non-dues camp. We have, here where we are as well, we have an art gallery. We have this maker space. We have a cooperative microbrewery where no money exchanges hands. I think that in the early days of Walter, our sort of complete aversion to money may have been part of the kind of what got it going.
That hippie energy from the 60s.
Maybe.
And I think you just find a lot of artists are wanting to do something fun with their art where, it's not commercial and it doesn't have a specific, constraints that they might have in other places. And so it's kind of like, oh, I heard about this and I can do this. And it just, it just grows as people.
So the 10 principles most certainly have played a role in this. And Walter has become its own thing outside of Burning Man. But it is everything that we have created in some way has been an offering and a gift back to the Burning Man community. I'm other than the Walter Dome, we don't pick that up and take that to Burning Man, but this was the platform through which all the things that we have brought to Burning Man have been created, and the community has done all of that. So,
but Walter Dome provides space and the gallery to people who are burners that are not associated with the Walter tribe, with Camp Walter. For instance, the Flamingos, the Saguaro Man people, Bus Club people.
AZ Burners,
AZ Burners. They use and enjoy the facilities around here.
Yeah.
So we can't take Walter Dome anywhere, but people can come and use Walter Dome.
A very fun thing is people coming into this space don't get it. They just don't understand how this works.
Yeah.
And that actually, I think, has helped us as well. people really don't understand exactly what we're doing.
And neither do we.
Well, and I agree with that. When we try to explain it to them, then sometimes we figure out just a little bit more of what we're doing here. We really don't have it all yet, but every time we have to try to explain things to people, oh, maybe, yeah, we're kind of doing that, aren't we?
Well, I think the thing that I was describing earlier about you guys' immediate energetic connection to family and building family. You found each other because you had a similar energy. And I feel like that energy connected with each other. And then it started to reverberate outwards. And so what you started to manifest little by little is this home that we're describing. And you're wondering, like, people come in, they don't understand what's happening. What they see, though, is that there is this energetic base. It's almost like, you're the sun that these planets will start to be able to revolve around and start to build their own things, and people can spec out and create new things. So that's what I'm saying. Like in 2008, for example, when you guys went and got Walter down here and you found this space, who were like the first handful of people that signed up to start helping you refabricate and build this thing?
Yeah, so the father of the other family that went to Burning Man with us the first time, Rob Larson. He's an engineer. He's certainly the founder, along with us of camp. He was one. He and I broke Walter as we were trying to, after we got it down here, we were trying to replace the spark plug wires, and Walter has like an 876 cubic inch gasoline V8 engine that is just bizarre old relic. And you really have to understand what you're doing to play with an engine of that size and of that design. We broke it like within about a week of bringing it down. So we got a mechanic who I knew through vegetable oil diesel conversion systems. And he came and was willing to come and look at Walter, and we explained what we were doing. And he helped us, and within a few weeks, he closed his business and came full-time on to help us get Walter to Burning Man.
Oh, wow.
We, Ricky mentioned Primo, and then his brother-in-law, Luis, who were really master fabricators, just really metal artists who came in. Joel and Martha, they had gone to Burning Man in the year we didn't go, in 2008, with another camp, and they have an LED lighting company. So we had some very, very early LED systems on Walter, kind of at that point. Nathan Ward, who was another metal fabricator.
Was Ziggy working here?
So Ziggy, he was about 20 years old, from France, had started his own business in one of the back bays where we were building Walter, doing body work. And he, as well, just like Dave Robertson, closed down his business and moved full-time onto helping us get Walter. And from that grew really the kind of the legions of kind of volunteers and others in that community.
Yeah. How many people did Camp Walter go to the burn with in 2009?
We think 15 to 20. Yeah.
But not Ricky.
Nope. And we were not a theme camp. Yeah. We had just gotten Walter just far enough to be able to get it to the burn. We hired a contractor to haul it to the kind of the beginning of the road that goes into to Gate out of Gerlach, and we didn't know that guy, the truck driver. He got it ready for us to unload, and the brakes were locked. We couldn't figure out, and turned out dust had gotten into kind of one of the brake pedal or something like that. So we knew enough that we figured out how to completely disconnect the brakes. And I had to drive it in to Burning Man in the middle of the night with no brakes. Walter. And Walter is, like 20,000 pounds and has 55-inch tires. And you don't want to mess around. It turned out I actually did have the emergency brake. I could flip the switch for the emergency brake, which would completely lock him up and just lock solid. But otherwise, I just had to drive him very, very carefully. And then we were in a theme camp, so we drove around through the city. The city, trying to find a place, and finally found this little corner, shut it off. This broken Walter, and had to wait for all of our reinforcements to come in who could kind of get him up and running again. But
that's first of all, by the way, the whole screaming "no brakes" while you're on a bicycle has a whole new meaning for me.
Yeah. It could be really no brakes, like literally.
The thing I always see with people with art cars on Playa is that like you are tinkering with that thing all week long, and that's what always makes me think like, oh god, I never want to have an art car on Playa. But what was that experience like? Talk about that week.
So like many of the art car owners, for whatever reason, Arizona has now kind of become an art car kind of place, which is really fun for us. But I've lived through some of their experiences, which are very much like our early Walter experiences. And there's so many challenges with logistics and mechanics and operations and all of that. And it was hell. I mean, quite honestly, but the best kind of hell, where like you're just so into that art piece, and even if it ran perfectly, you'd still probably be just attending to every little piece that doesn't quite work right. But I would say that we've matured through that. We bring 10 to 15 semi-loads of stuff now to Burning Man. We work on our cars throughout. We have full-time mechanics. We just added another mechanic to our team. Walter's 100-year project, right. And all of our vehicles are really being prepared to be able to go for as long as they can.
That said, we still tinker with them all week long.
We do, we do, but in very different ways. We've learned a lot over 10 years.
So you guys come back with the high of that first burn. You had this amazing experience. You've now created a tribe out here. Ricky, you're hearing all these stories, I imagine, and no part of you was thinking, oh, I can't wait to go.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. So, okay, here's the story. First burn for me. So it's what I call work week. I've always called work week. All those other lazy fucking hippies call it early access so they can get in and party before the burn opens.
They call it a work access pass.
So they call it work access pass right now, which is great. I'm finally glad. Anyway, so it's Tuesday of work week.
What year is this, Ricky?
The year of the big rain when the gate was closed for a day and a half or so. Whenever that
was that 2012?
14. So, yeah, because remember how it rained. And Walter was stuck out on the road for a day and a half with Tom. Anyway, so it's Tuesday of work week, and we're here on the property at Walter Dome over by the gallery, and it's like mid-late afternoon, and Kirk walks up with a Ziploc bag and says, "Here, get in your truck and get the fuck out of here." And inside the Ziploc bag is a survival guide, and I've had a number of them. I still have to read one of these days. A ticket and a vehicle pass. And I go, oh, okay, if you say so. So that was Tuesday afternoon. So I immediately called my daughter and said, help, I need a pink party outfit. We do the annual pink party a week later on Tuesday. And she said, okay, got it. So I go home and I'm there for a couple hours. I zip by my daughter's house. I pick up a brown paper bag, grocery bag. It says, do not open until pink party. Throw it in my truck, and by Wednesday mid-morning, I'm going through gate. And nobody knew that I was going to the burn. Because for years before that, Ricky did not go to the burn. And it was so fun. Just those looks on people. I walk up to Joel and I park kind of off to the side somewhere. And I walk up to, you guys aren't even there yet. And I walk up to Joel and Martha's trailer RV. And I stick my head in the door and I say, any way a guy could get a drink around here? And they just go, oh no shit, what's going on? And then Ray, who'd been with us for years, Ray Kale, she's riding her bicycle down where were we? Like 3 o'clock and something or other? Anyway, she's riding down to the porta potties, and I'm coming out of the dust. It's like a Clint Eastwood movie, right? Coming out of the dust, and I got my hat on, and she's on her bicycle, and she's looking, and then she kind of stops, and I kind of raise my head, and she falls over on her bicycle. It actually falls over like in a cartoon. So my first burn was just goofing on people. Yeah. You know, it really...
But Ricky had started to manage the logistics and the organization. Because, I mean, for anybody who runs a big camp, you know how much... Like, what a challenge it is. And so we were like running, you know, many semi-loads from Phoenix. We were needing to store stuff in between. We were needing to clean stuff up that came, you know, back and all that. And Ricky'd been managing that for years.
For the past, I mean, there was a 5-year window here, right?
Yeah.
For the time that you guys got Walter.
Everything needs fixing and cleaning and shipping out. But we didn't have that many vehicles, so it was easy enough for several people to take care of.
Yeah.
You know, obviously now. No.
It's such a, I mean, I think that Burning Man for us is it's like, it super challenges us every year. It keeps us fit. It challenges, you know, whatever we think is our organization, because every organization fails at some degree. And it certainly makes us stronger going every year. I mean, we're in it for the long run. You know,
no, that's why we keep doing it. Important. I mean, going out there to this environment that kicks the living shit out of you with your vacation time. Like, why do you keep doing this? Well, because you come back and you feel stronger and accomplished. And I want to talk about that 5-year window between you guys getting Walter out there and finally Ricky getting out there.
Yeah.
The tribe is growing.
Yeah.
You guys are taking a little bit more space here at Camp Walter.
Disaster was what struck.
Within that 5-year period?
Yeah. Disaster is why we grew, for sure. And so Walter, for years, was just an old fire truck sitting up on top of the side of this mountain. And every year he would watch this gathering of hundreds of Volkswagens. He probably, for 15 years, he probably watched that happen. And after we made him into a giant Volkswagen bus, we had the brilliant idea of driving him up. It's a mountain. I mean, it's literally a mountain, like a 8% grade up this, you know, many miles to get him up there. And you can't drive big semis up there, or at least at the time we didn't think that we could. And so we would haul Walter to the bottom of this mountain and we'd drive him up there. And we took him back so that he was one of the 300 buses.
Oh gosh, and he's an old man with a replaced hip.
Exactly. So he did that for 2 or maybe 3 years of that, and that was really the only thing we did really with Walter, other than the occasional parade or go to another Volkswagen show or something. He went back to Jerome, and this one year, Walter was driving back down the mountain, and he blew one of his pistons, and his piston shattered inside of the block. And so the kind of connecting rod is sort of flipping around inside. He ended up driving for several miles down the mountain until finally he knocked the oil pump out the side of the block. And he died. And he almost went over the side of the mountain. And at the bottom of the mountain in the valley are still old vehicles from the 40s, because they're so far down there you can't even haul them back out. And Walter almost went over the side. Oh my gosh. And he was completely broken. So Walter is dead. What years was this? It's in that it's about halfway through that 5-year window there. Okay. And it was, I mean, that he was the only vehicle we had. We had all these sort of people, that had gotten him to Burning Man for a few years. And we brought him back to the Walter Dome, broken, and gathered up all the broken pieces of his, like they took him out of the road and brought them all back. And that was when the community actually gelled. The community gelled around fixing Walter. Yeah. And we went on eBay, found another Walter crash truck, which turned out to be Heathen. He's a 1987, beautiful truck. We were fighting the scrappers, they wanted to pay $3,000 for him or whatever. We beat the scrappers and got him here. We found another engine, which was Big Red's engine. We found the chassis of Big Red, which was in Minnesota, another early Walter crash truck. And we had our very first fundraiser, which was like we made jewelry out of the old broken pieces of his engine, photographs of Walter, and basically the community gathered, and we ultimately fixed Walter, which was we took Big Red's engine, a 1959 Walter crash truck, put it in, created the Big Red, which is the giant beetle, created Heathen out of that, and that was really the kind of the real growth of Walter.
That was the light and under the collective ass of the tribe to really get in there. Yep. How many people were involved at that time?
100?
Wow.
Maybe?
Including volunteers. Mainly volunteers.
100.
Yeah.
Went from 15 to 100 in like a 3 to 4 year span.
And 240 go to Burning Man, but the community is larger than that.
Yeah. How do you guys coordinate with the community?
So we go to Burning Man. That's absolutely one of them. We do a lot of events outside of Burning Man now, and those are opportunities for people to come and be part of Walter events that are happening off Playa. We do Third Friday potlucks here, where whatever projects are being built are usually kind of there and to play with. People bring food. Our cooperative microbrewery does supplies all the beer, and that is certainly a part of it. And we throw the occasional party, and our parties are usually really, really fun.
So by 2014, by the time Ricky finally made it out to Playa, it was already at like the 240 level.
Almost. Like we were probably sub 200, but it was growing.
Yeah.
But it was growing
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
What about the evolution of the Walter Dome? At what point would you say was like sort of the important time in your history where it really sparked off to become what it is now, which is very much a hub and a home, like a maker and burner home space in Arizona?
Yeah, I don't think there's a single event. I think because we built almost everything in here. It's like the builds, which I said are a really important part of the way that we've expanded our community, are build related. There's kind of been continuous builds over the last 10 years that have been going on in here. The last couple of years, we had some other builder partner friends that came in, and that the Walter Dome became very productive. Like for things for giant brands and all of that. But the next phase of the Walter Dome, because I think that's another thing about Walter, is everything is always changing. Like every time you come to the Walter Dome, it's different. No matter, even if it's just a few months in between visits, it's always something different. But now Mary's starting the Walter Hive, which is our not-for-profit arm. And we've been doing community service and really, I guess community service is probably the way to describe it, ever since we started. But now we're going to consolidate that into an entity called the Hive, which will be a 501c3 not-for-profit, and the Walter Dome will become really the home of the Hive.
Right. And I guess that's funny that we're describing the nonprofit, because my next question was going to be, over the years, what sorts of fundraising approaches were you guys thinking? Was it events? Is it Walter Productions that was developing at that time?
Yeah. So
how do we pay for all this?
Yeah. So Mary and I have been supporters of Walter from the very beginning. We realized that there's no way we can bring to Playa what we want to bring every year if we don't have a continuous operation.
Right.
Like you can't have the expertise, you can't get to the technical levels that you need to get to, you can't do the logistics if you're not doing this pretty much every day.
Right.
And so that's where Walter Productions grew out of that. And we, I would say, sort of to your question, the ability to do events off Playa is why we're a no dues big camp at Burning Man today.
Right.
Were it not for that, we would not be able to do that.
Yeah. At what point was there like a specific time where Walter Productions became an official thing?
Yeah, we're about 3 years, because 3 years ago we decided that we really wanted to organize this for the long term. I said before, Walter's 100-year project, which is actually 100 years from today, which is interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Literally today?
Today.
Oh.
Yeah,
Always.
isn't that?
Okay. Oh, I see.
Well, tomorrow's
Tomorrow
100 years
is
from
100
tomorrow,
years
but
from today.
yeah, but it's 100 years that we're always thinking, and we realized like we had to get our shit together, or there's no possible way. If anything happened to Mary and I, like this is not going to keep going. So
there's also like I think it's also a part of community building is to have the entire community be invested in that process. So a lot of times, like I think younger artists, a lot of times will just kind of wish somebody will just give them all the money so they can do what they. But you don't get as invested in your long-term project. Yeah. This is part of it's. If you imagine the Walter family, it's like everybody has their chores they got to do. Somebody has to, clean the bathroom. Somebody else clean the kitchen.
So we have a strategy that has a kind of an arm right now, which is we have a traveling circus-like show that goes all over the place, and we have been everywhere, and it's just we've learned so much, and it's sort of like Burning Man that really teaches us a lot about how to operate and how to be authentic, but we're also building a home in Phoenix, which is going to be a giant house. It's a house. It's about an 800 square foot bungalow that's been scaled up to 64 times that volume. So the front door will be almost 30 feet tall. It'll have gigantic furniture in it, and it'll be an event space, a space. It'll be a home for Walter for the long term. It'll be built with construction methods that will be at minimum 100 years, sort of thinking about their duration, and that'll really be the economic base for Walter to be able to function regardless of whatever happens to Mary and me.
Yeah.
And we're so dependent on our volunteer community. I mean, regardless of where the financial support comes. I mean, that's just, we couldn't do it without.
No way.
What percentage of your volunteers are, for lack of a better description, burners versus a percentage that just like they're makers that live locally and like to build?
So I would say that the volunteers, the really invested volunteers, if you look a year or 2 or 3 ago, would have been 80%. They're 80% burners.
You think that little? I'm thinking
maybe
more.
90.
I'm
maybe
thinking
90.
More.
Yeah.
Now, like I think about like we had these huge sort of surge of new volunteers, like when we did the Lost Lake Festival, less than 50%.
Right.
And I think that, like, if you look at who the volunteers were...
For Lost Lake?
Yeah. Of the volunteer Lost Lake, I would say that less than 50% of those folks are burners.
I didn't recognize, definitely half of those people. Yeah.
And that is how we've grown our community. Like, we have an art gallery because we wanted to attract artists into our community. And we have a cooperative brewery because we wanted brewers to come in. And we've moved into new geographic areas as well as new facilities. And every time there's fewer and fewer burners in those circles. And part of what I think everything we do off Playa is absolutely inspired by Burning Man. Yeah. But the people that we're interacting with off playa, the vast majority of those people will never go to Burning Man.
Right.
The vast majority of people in almost any off playa event are not likely to ever go.
Yeah.
So
it's radical inclusion, civic
it is,
responsibility. Yeah.
And they all respond to,
Right.
Well, at least, so Walter has its own 10 principles, but the first 3 are the ones that we always go out with, and it's show up, be nice, and clean up your shit.
Yeah.
And that is that's how we run Camp Walter,
Right.
and it's taken care of, I would say, 90+% of any problems that we have. It's about showing up, and showing up is an expanded version, definition of what showing up means in terms of bringing your true self and all that. And being nice is super, super important. I mean, that's the killer for a community is when they're not, or at least in our case, and then clean up, leave no trace.
Yeah. I guess like part of what I was wondering is, I would imagine it's a common thing for people to get involved with the Walter Dome and with Walter Productions, and then have that be their entry into actually going to their first burn.
Absolutely.
Would you say it's about half and half if you had to ballpark, or is it people that have been to the burn and then came and found you guys afterwards?
I'd have to think long and hard to pick out a person that, for instance, this past year in Camp Walter, that did not begin as a volunteer and
then came to Burning Man after.
Worked on projects or worked on helping with work week. Some people can't spend weeks out on playa. Some people have a hard time just spending a full week because it takes a couple of days to get there and a couple of days to get back. So we can't really expect everybody to show up for work week and everybody to show up and stay for strike. But people can come and help with cleaning parties, or can come and help with when we put on a fundraising event, or they can come and help when we're fixing Mona Lisa or cleaning up Peace Train or whatever. So they're basically earning, although we don't keep notes, really. It's mostly mental.
Sure.
But they're basically earning an entry into Camp Walter. Yeah. But I don't know.
I think it's heavily leans that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. People go to Burning Man after interacting with Walter.
Yeah.
I mean, our camp is usually probably 40% new burners.
That was the census this year. Was 40% on playa.
Yeah, and a lot of those people we knew kind of through other events and through their interaction. They showed up.
Yeah.
So people that show up,
you guys. I mean, Camp Walter, because I've had multiple conversations with people, especially at like SoAroMan when Rebel and I attended SoAroMan this last year. People that described. First of all, I met a lot of people at SoAroMan, the Arizona Regional Burn, who had not attended the burn ever, but this was like their 5th or 6th SoAroMan, and also they would describe how the Walter Dome and Camp Walter is very much, it's serving all of those things that people desire about attending the burn. They're experiencing that here. So you guys are almost like the Arizona gate into Burning Man. This is where you're doing your dust angels. This is where you're, doing your volunteer shift. And then you finally get out into the playa when you make it out there after a few years.
Yeah.
So it's really a wonderful service that you guys are providing for this region. I'm wondering, on the Walter Productions part, I like this kind of geeky information because a lot of times when people, this might be inspiration for people in other parts of the world who are looking to what you guys are doing, and seeing how they can build their own thing, by trying to serve their community in the way that you guys are. Was Walter Productions an idea that you guys had? Did you have people within the tribe who were, I don't know, entrepreneurial minded, if you will, who took charge of that part of the operation? How does that sort of operate?
A number of people. Jennifer Erickson.
She's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jeremy
Christianer driving
Watson is an entrepreneur.
and curating. Jeremy
Entrepreneurs.
Watson.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, and you kind of went
Ryan.
pop health.
Yeah. So I started a healthcare company, which was very helpful in being able to actually support Walter. One that would focus on the highest risk people that are in and out of the hospital all the time, and figuring out how to better take care of that population. And so that was sort of like my entrepreneurial training.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Erickson, she would really be like the CEO of Walter. She is as well an entrepreneur. Jeremy Watson, who's our business development person for Walter Productions, has started companies and has been an entrepreneur serial entrepreneur since he was in high school. I think there's an entrepreneurial spirit at that level.
Ryan Tucknott, who started here as a volunteer on Sound and Light in Calliope.
And an entrepreneur himself.
And very, very much that minded. And now he's basically operations
director
manager.
of operations, yeah.
What was the very first production officially under Walter Productions?
So we started, we would go to Volkswagen bus shows. Mm. We would go to parades. We would go to community events. And Jeremy Watson was friends with some of the guys at Superfly. Superflies are the producers of Bonnaroo in Manchester, Tennessee, Outside Lands in Golden Gate Park. And they invited us to come to Bonnaroo. Mm. And in retrospect, we were ill-prepared to be a professional production company. We had just built Calliope, and we knew Calliope changed everything. Mm. Like, we had a number of vehicles, but Calliope was a game changer. Like, she was again an old, forgotten, ready to be trashed 1969 Fruhoff over-the-road trailer, and we used like 1950s horns, 1970s mid and woofers. And then modern subwoofers, and created Calliope in the Walter Dome here. We built her here. But as soon as we took her to Burning Man, everything changed. Like she was able to gather, just get people's attention, and they wanted to come and be part of like the music and all that. And that was how we got invited to Bonnaroo. It was because of Calliope. But Walter Productions was very early and embryonic at that stage. And that was we got the itch sort of after that. And we've been a lot of places since then. But we're actually this year we're heading back to Bonnaroo again. And certainly Superfly has been important in helping teach us and train us. And doing Lost Lake as a partner with them here in the Valley was kind of the latest evolution of that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow night there's the New Year's Eve party. Walter Productions will be involved with.
We're going to shoot a lot of fire.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Because
it's basically the Playa show.
Yeah.
Very rarely outside of Playa can we put on pretty much the whole show.
We never put it all back together off Playa, almost ever.
It's going to happen tomorrow night for the most part.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, we have Walter Dome. There's, of course, Camp Walter on Playa. There's Walter Productions that, you're working all this stuff outside of the burn-on. And the nonprofit that you're launching or in the... Okay.
We're in the works. We're doing kind of the paperwork and getting the funding established and all of that stuff. And then we're probably starting to sort of kick off really doing programming and stuff at the beginning of February, we hope.
Wow. There's a lot of stuff you guys are juggling.
We're opening a brewery in an old fire station in 2018 as well.
Oh
And so it's a true commercial brewing operation.
Yeah.
What else are we doing?
Well, we have the gallery, which
Right.
has been going on for years now.
Yep.
I don't know if you'd mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yep, the Walter Art Gallery.
Yeah,
I don't know. We've got to start something new. I don't know.
Well,
Seem to be sitting around doing nothing a lot right
so
now.
for Camp Walter, we've never had a kitchen, like a community kitchen, and this year we're gonna break through that membrane.
Kind of a mess hall situation.
Yeah.
One of the things we find, since it is such an intensive camp to build, and people drive by or walk by or ride their bikes by Camp Walter, and they don't see a heck of a lot going on during the day, and we'll be sitting in the shade, and everybody's going that. And then they'll come by the next day, and they'll go, what the hell happened here? Well, everybody works all night long, because it's all night long till dawn. But one of the things that, with this kitchen mess hall, we can provide to all the people that are both paid and volunteer that are there working their butts off for 8 or 9 days before the gate opens is meals. Because the last thing you want to do after you've been working for 8 or 10 or 12 hours, and it doesn't really cool off that much at night sometimes, is go back to your yurt or your trailer or your tent or whatever and try to deal with food.
Yeah.
And so people just, sometimes they don't eat. Sometimes they don't drink enough water. So they don't, Gatorade, anything. Keep their energy up, their physical being going, and then their mental attitude will stay positive also. So if we can feed them, Army travels on its stomach.
Yeah.
We should probably clarify what paid at Burning Man means. We have a year-round operation here, and we have people that are employed as part of the production company. So we don't make them take vacation to be at Burning Man. In fact, we don't really enforce vacation. Our schedules are so wacky. I mean, you work 100 hours, for a couple weeks, and then we're slow for a little while. But
I would imagine you don't have too many employees that are looking at the clock and they can't wait to get off.
No. But Burning Man it could be seen as your vacation, and I don't really want to set up the Walter show,
Right.
But everybody who's on that operational side, they all go to Burning Man. I mean, all of them have come up through Burning Man, and so we don't not pay them when they come to Burning Man.
Yeah.
But we don't hire people for Burning Man. It's our community. It's almost everyone is volunteer, other than the people who are really Walter production staff.
Was that a conscious decision to, for lack of a better description, not hire people for Burning Man? Because I know it's a gray area. But...
Yeah. It's I think we're trying to ride that. How do you make this sustainable? How do we be authentic off playa? How do you make that work? And I think that we're probably very cautious as it relates to how we approach that dilemma.
Right.
And we've directly talked with folks at Burning Man about it. And when we created our walterproductions.com website, we sent it through Burning Man, and we asked them, what do you guys think? And they gave us feedback on some of the images. But so far we've felt supported, and we're really trying to do it right.
Right. I wonder, because there are many camps that do have people that they do pay, and we're not necessarily taking a stance one way or another, because I think everybody has their story. But I wonder if you guys, being the size of camp that you are, and the production that you're putting together, have you hit situations where you look at it and you're like, God, I really wish I could just throw money at this, but the more sincere thing to do over here would be to, energize the volunteer base and find a way to approach this that kind of like meets Burning Man.
I think probably every year we go to Burning Man and we come out different on the other end. Like what we do off playa gets bigger every year. And it's in part because we go to Burning Man and we stretch ourselves there. Like we experiment and we push on our capabilities. And I would say that our staff has grown because of Burning Man. Like we realize, holy crap, we'd like to keep doing this off playa. Yeah. Like we'd love to, we'd love to do more. And that probably pushes us to, when we get back, hire people who've helped us, try to get through stuff. Right. So I feel like we've just been growing really rapidly, I guess, over the last few years. And it coincides, if you saw a graph of the kind of the intensity of production that we're doing on playa, our staffing is growing probably the same rate.
Yeah, the fact that you guys are living this life, the entire year, and you have all the productions going all the time, makes it so that all the pieces fall into place the way they're supposed to, without having to force it once you're actually on playa. Like it's all sort of aligning where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly more that way now. It was choppy before, I think. I think because we didn't do productions very often. Now we're doing productions all the time, and so it is certainly more seamless when we go on playa.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit real quick about the Lost Lake Festival?
Yeah. So Superfly did festivals, like I said, in Manchester, Tennessee, and in Golden Gate Park, and they were looking for another city, and what they tell us is that in part because we're here, they wanted to pick Phoenix, and Phoenix didn't have a festival of that type. There were some really cool festivals that have been going on in Phoenix, but in the past, but not like what they were envisioning. And they contracted with us. We partnered up to help produce it. Found this park. So sort of, it's very Walter. It's a park that so few people kind of had been in. Nobody knew that there was a lake there even. And now everybody in Phoenix knows that that is really there.
It was a lost lake.
Yeah. So there was a big industry event in Vegas just a few weeks ago, and there were maybe 5 or 6 finalists of Best New Festival. And this was an international sort of view, and they picked Lost Lake as the Best New Festival. And I just am so proud of like what we and the Phoenix community pulled off to do that. There was art. We brought art from Burning Man. I don't know if you saw Interspecies Communication, which is Ela Lamblin and this group from Seattle. It's this gigantic bird that you could pull on this rope and it would flap its wings. The name of the lake at Lost Lake is called Bird Lake, and so their sculpture was just absolutely perfect for Lost Lake. We shot fire. We had our vehicles there. We probably our best accomplishment was we activated the lake. Yeah. We actually had these gigantic lotus flowers that shoot liquid flame effects, like a dozen of them across this lake. And like at the end of the night, we would play music around the lake, and like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. You have thousands of people singing at the top of their lungs, watching the fire shoot out of all of these lotuses, and cheering the lake. It was just an unbelievable experience, and something that was just, I think, really good for Phoenix. Like we created that thing. The music was amazing, art, the food, everything, and we made all these giant games, and so people were playing. It was very Burning Man. It was so positive, so positive.
That's beautiful. So let's say I am a listener from some other part of the country or the world, and I'm looking forward to experiencing Camp Walter. Should I just make it out to the playa next year? What should I look out for? Are there things that you would recommend, other places that I should get to in order to have some of these experiences? What's on the horizon for Walter Productions in Camp Walter?
Yeah. I mean, I would say for Camp Walter, it's like you just show up wherever we are. We've been at 10 and Esplanade for the last couple of years. I don't know where we'll be next year, but yeah, it's like we always try to have something going on, whether it's yoga in the morning or meditation, or, it's a dance party at night, or we'll have some food maybe this year. We're thinking of if we can share more food than we eat, or if there's more, then we'll share that. And then the vehicles are out cruising around, and I hope no one would ever feel like we wouldn't let them on to in our car. We don't do private tours unless it happens to be, something for DPW or for the founders, or, for something. But otherwise, our cars are meant to be flagged down, hopped on, and just be part of the fun.
And Playa will be about the only place you would ever be able to see the whole show.
Yeah. And
there are always things that show up at Camp Walter that we've never really planned out, like Tower of Terror this year.
Tower of Terror.
Which turned out to be one of the biggest hits in Playa. But it also
so fun.
Created quite a bit of work for ESD. Ambulances showing up and EMTs showing up. But everybody loved it. That was always going 24 hours a day the entire
minor
week.
Injuries.
Minor
Injuries.
Oh, come on, let's tell it.
But so Fred's one of the members of Camp Walter, and a genius, and he created this swing, basically like a merry-go-round swing with two semi-truck axles rated at 30,000 pounds at 100 miles an hour. And there's a pole, so it's like a giant axle between one of the hubs, which is sitting on the playa, one that's up about 25, 30 feet, and then a giant, almost like a bicycle ring with guy wires that go down and support that. Hanging from this big ring are all of these various things to swing on, from silks, so 2 silks, to what looks to me like a giant dream catcher where you can sit on, to a little wicker bench where a couple people can be on, to some sort of S&M sort of contraption that you are strapped into.
What could go wrong?
Exactly, to a little elementary school swing, and there's all of these swings, and it's completely human powered.
Yeah.
So, and although our tech team did set up lighting so that from time to time it would look like it was just nicely glowing, and then it would glitch and start strobing and doing all this, and usually at that point somebody would grab the silks and run as fast as they could. And then you're on this thing, and it's going like a bat out of hell. And you don't want to fall off because the next thing's coming around, or the semi-truck tire, which was another one of the swings. You don't want to fall off the dream catcher and look up and see the semi-truck tire, coming at your head. So part of the fun was actually people pulling the next person out as to keep them from getting hurt. And during work week, this big art car full of folks from DPW came and made it go faster than anyone ever did the whole rest of the week, and it didn't break, and I think we got a nod of approval, and so it stayed up the whole week, and it went almost 24 hours a day. There were people swinging on that thing, little kids in the morning, and crazies at night.
Oh my gosh.
Tower of Terror. So fun. We got to bring it back next year.
Very fitting.
It was such a good thing. Such a good thing.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I'm sure all this information... Thank you so much, by the way, for sitting down and telling us this whole story. On behalf of everyone, I have to thank you very much for all the work that you do for the community, this amazing thing you bring to the Burn, this community that you've built here that continues to survive on its own, even if the people involved never even make it out to Burning Man. I mean, this is the most important part of it, is that not everybody has the ability. Sometimes there's work, there's life, all kinds of... The thing that kept you guys from making it out there for just under a decade. So thank you for everything that you guys provide and all the time and everything you contribute. And We appreciate your story. So I think everybody can go to the Camp Walter website, Facebook page, get more information if they want to make it out to your potluck that you guys do. What is it, third Friday of the month?
Third Fridays when the weather's nice at the Walter Dome.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Tons of information for people to explore. Thank you guys so much. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing with the podcast.
And thank you for the gifts, by the way. This has been awesome. The swag.
You're welcome.
There you go. There you have it, Camp Walter. You have not seen the last of them on this show. I can't wait to get back with them and just get into like the real geeky nitty gritty of each one of their art cars and productions. You are now tapping your feet to the sounds of Joe P and Gerry Bailey back to back on Calliope at the Pink Party at Camp Walter, Burning Man 2017. I think this was like Tuesday night at the Burn. We're going to play about an hour of it. If you want to hear the rest, you should bug Joe P over at soundcloud.com/Joe-P. That's JOE-PEA. Both Joe P and Gerry Bailey are some of the hardest working people in the dance music community. Joe stage manages at events like Desert Hearts, and Gerry does tons of work in the regional world. I think he was at camp with Bronner's Camp this past year. Lots of love to both of them. They're just really both beautiful, amazing people. And Gerry needs to get his shit together on his promo game. I want like a SoundCloud or some shit to send people to, bro. Just giving him shit. Both of them really amazing DJs. But yeah, you can check out Joe P's contribution to Burner Podcast Presents Alkaline. He was featured on session A021. Please give us a like on Facebook and join the Facebook group. Talk shit and make friends. There's lots of stuff happening there. And leave us a review on iTunes. It helps get the show more visibility and so that more of our tribe can be a part of this conversation. All the links are over at burnerpodcast.com. You can connect with me on all the social medias at Mr. Arash. That's MRARASH. I am most active on Facebook and Instagram, but you can tweet me and stuff as well. I do eventually check it. Burner Podcast is produced by Rebel Dharma along with associate producer Tori Massey and is released on the first and third Wednesdays of the month and is available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeart Radio, and TuneIn Radio, among many others. The show is not hard to find. We thank you, dear listeners, for all of your support. Our opening theme music is America's Horse with No Name Remix. It is produced by Joe Man. You can check out his stuff over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joe Man. So until next time, love, light, and all that other crap. Take it away, Joe P and Gerry Bailey, and I'm going to go have some tea and honey.
burnerpodcast.com.